The time has come.
I like that.
The time is now for Victoria Stilwell's Positively Podcast. She's a world-renowned dog trainer.
Seen enough dogs today, have you?
She's the host of It's Me or the Dog.
I'm coming to train you.
Along with co-host Holly Furfer.
You don't play around with that name, do you?
I am a fan of sweaty balls.
She's Victoria Stillwell, and she's ready to go.
This is a lovely way to start the day.
You get the busy bee. I need to trim her whiskers.
I see some poo here.
I feel a little bit better now because I'm the only one who usually feels stupid during the podcast.
Now, let's head to the studio and get this Positively Podcast started.
Well, we meet again. Look at that. Hello.
Where have you been traveling to, Holly?
To my bedroom, to the basement, to the refrigerator, Puerto La backyard, and Cabo Los couches. It's been very exciting.
Oh my gosh, what a week it's been. What a week it's been. I mean, with all of the news and the cold in this country, how cold it has been. I mean, I think 48 out of 50 states have had snow.
It's unbelievable, especially down. I actually had to pull out a map because I thought, wait, isn't Texas below us in Atlanta here? And sure enough, but that Arctic blast. And my mom, I'm from Chicago, so I'm part of the bear genus. So it doesn't matter. In the winter, I pack on pounds. My body's ready to hibernate. I can retain warmth for days. But my mom sent a picture from the backyard, and I'll be darned if there wasn't like 2 feet of snow. And all we got was this caption, "This is what you're missing." And my brothers and I were like, yeah, that's great. So yeah, but it is bad. And unfortunately, in places like Texas, they're not prepared for this. And I think everybody now has to think about a new normal. Climate change, which, it's snowing in Austin and it's sub-freezing temperatures. People are just going to have to be prepared for stuff they never were.
It's terrifying. It truly is. But I think it is a sort of a kick in the backside for everybody. Yeah. Everybody. The day just got better because we have Sarah Fisher all the way from lockdown UK. But we have the wonderful Sarah Fisher, who is one of my most favorite people, my most favorite trainers, behavior experts. She has worked in the training behavior industry for years and years and years, and is a part of, she comes and teaches our students at the Dog by Academy, and she speaks at the Dog Behavior Conference. She'll be speaking at this Dog Behavior Conference, 16th to the 18th of April. Sarah, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Sarah.
Thank you. Hi, so lovely to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
So how is everything with you?
It's different, but I am very lucky that I have land and animals, and I am so grateful for that, because obviously I can be outside and exercising the animals and taking care of them. And also I'm very lucky that I've been able to move all my content online, and I'm loving online teaching. I love teaching anyway, and I just am so grateful for every opportunity to share my passion, but I didn't realize I would really, really, really love online teaching. And the progress of the dogs has been amazing because they're in a familiar environment without having to travel to an in-person event at my farm. So I have to say I'm having a really rewarding time, and I am very, very lucky to be having a rewarding time in what is obviously an absolute nightmare situation.
Explain where you are, because I don't think people know about the farm.
Oh, okay. I live just outside of Bath in Somerset in the United Kingdom. It's in the southwest of England. And I'm really lucky that I have a beautiful 90-acre property where we have our in-person events, and also places there where I've been able to foster puppies, because we've got quite a lot of different environments. And we've got quiet rooms as well. So some of the puppies that I fostered over the years were really struggling in kennels, but we could have them safely at the farm and integrate them really gradually into sort of environments where there was just naturally more movement and noise, because I've got so many different places at the farm. And it's a really tranquil place. We're just really lucky with the lay of the land. And we also take in old horses. So it's a really nice environment. And it's a great place to build a dog's education. And
isn't it beautiful?
love it too, yeah.
But it's in a beautiful part of the country. Somerset, Wiltshire, all around there is gorgeous. And for those of you who haven't been to the UK, do go and see Bath. It's not like having a bath, but it is named after the Roman baths. And if you do go to Bath, you will see not just the most beautiful Georgian architecture, but you will be able to see the Roman baths, which are fascinating. And so now,
at the end of the podcast, remind me, I have a very funny story about Bath, because I didn't realize that's exactly where you were, but I'm going to make you wait for that story. So
can't wait. Very exciting. Okay, so tell me, Sarah, about ACE.
ACE it's a new organisation, and it stands for Animal-Centred Education. But I've been working this way for probably 25 years now, which is a bit frightening. So it's a mixture of really calm and rewarding activities, including this amazing structured approach called ACE Free Work that sort of came about by accident. And it started really with the dogs at Battersea over 20 years ago who didn't like being touched. And because they were really aroused, because they had undiagnosed body pain, because they were utterly overwhelmed, because their whole world had changed coming into the shelter, obviously. And my original background was human massage therapy and also studying human anatomy and physiology. So I understood the importance of giving the nervous system new information through contact with different textures on the human foot. And I thought, why don't we use that approach with dogs as a way of engaging their sensory system, but allowing the dog to touch different textures at a pace to suit that individual dog. So that got introduced to the way I work about 20 years ago. And I've just kind of built on that principle, really thinking of how we can influence the nervous system. So we're not just using skills to teach the dog to use his brain. We're actively enhancing a dog's education through understanding 7 senses. And eventually, sort of in 2018, I think it was, I realised that there was so much value to how I was able to share my experiences over 20 years with people that it kind of needed a name so that people could come and sign up and learn to be an ACE trainer or work towards being qualified as an ACE trainer. So that's how that name came about. And really the premise is that we're helping animals find their centre. We're helping them to develop good physical balance, which is linked with good emotional and mental balance. But also the animal is at the centre of that animal's education process. So animal-centred education and ACE just kind of popped into my head. And it's a name that everyone remembers.
Can you take the listeners through what a sort of a typical ACE protocol is, or what when a dog comes into the centre, what happens? What do you do?
One thing I noticed over many years, even Tony, my partner, does it, is what I call displacement fumbling, when people have their dog next to them. And it's a normal part of human behaviour. It's a bit of a displacement activity. But what I was seeing when people were coming for private behaviour consults, or if they were with me on a course and they were introducing themselves and their dog and what they hoped to learn from the course in that group situation, people would sit and ruffle with their dog's ears. And because they weren't aware that they were doing that, they weren't aware of their dog's responses to that body contact. So the dog would start becoming quite aroused or start to try to move away because it wasn't very rewarding for that dog. And that was something that really stood out. The other thing was that the dogs in a novel situation, obviously just from the new sights and the new sounds of that environment, were obviously also slightly aroused. So I started to include more sensory items like snuffle mats and things that the dog could do to engage himself, which would also take him away from their guardian who might need to do displacement fumble with their dog. And what started to happen was amazing, because the dog settled more quickly because we're encouraging the seeking system by putting out enrichment items, we were able to see more detail in terms of the way the dog organized his body. And that's one of my passions, is helping people understand this amazing link between a dog's posture and behavior. So people could understand their dog more quickly while they were watching their dog, but also because their dog was relaxed, they relaxed, and therefore they shared more of the reason why they were with me or had come to see me early on. Because I'm sure, as you know, if you go for behavior, or someone comes to you for a behavior consult, quite often you don't get to know the real reason, the real struggles they're having till about 10 minutes before the end. And that's normal. People aren't deliberately withholding. It's about trust and also sort of delivering information that might be difficult to articulate, and they might perceive that information as difficult for you to hear. So it often only comes up towards the end because that person is about to leave. So that whole approach has become like a really integral part of how I start all behaviour consults. So we now set out even more enrichment items and start pointing out this link between posture and behaviour. Because the other thing that people often want to share is they want that dog to demonstrate the behaviour they're struggling with. And I obviously don't want the dog to be practicing a behaviour or put in an emotional position where that dog struggles, so he has to demonstrate that behaviour. But I also want the client to be heard. I don't want to shut them down and say, oh, I don't need to see that. So I'll start making these little observations and say, well, have you noticed your dog's ear set, for example? It's really interesting. His right ear doesn't move that much, even when he's listening to us. I'm just aware that that right ear is looking a little higher. And that often links to mobility behind, where the dog might have started to have reduced movement through quite often maybe that right hip joint. And, if you look at your dog, can you see that he is a bit tight through the hind limb? Because when he stepped around that object, the right leg swung out and it didn't move through, helping to push the dog through from the power of the hind limb. He's kind of pulling himself along from the forequarters, and that hind limb is swinging out. That can often be linked to dogs that bark and lunge, for example. And then the person might say, that's exactly what happens. We go out for a walk. It's becoming really difficult. They can see that we've got these postural patterns, and they may never have recognized the link or understood there's stuff we can do to help change that postural pattern. Obviously, we need to rule out pain. So quite often clients do get referred back to the vet. But the owner starts to be able to see their dog with new eyes. And then, of course, we can say, look, the ears are relaxing and softening. So we'll do more of these gentle movement exercises where the dog's got his head in a snuffle mat. And then we can also maybe modify how we handle that lead to help reduce tension on the neck, so we're not reinforcing that position. Am I making sense? Or
yes, you are.
Yeah, you are. What is a snuffle mat?
Oh, a snuffle mat. Oh, the snuffle mat. It's I love snuffle mats. I don't know, when did they start? When did they start
Holland.
Becoming? When was that?
It was a lady in Holland, I think, that started them.
Right.
What is
put
it?
a how-to video on YouTube.
Yeah. So it's sort of material. If it's like a mat, it's like a mega shag mat. I mean, not that kind of shag, but I'm just saying it's a sort of shag pile mat, as in there's lots. Anyway, I'm going down another avenue. Right. But it's where you hide little pieces of food within the folds of this mat. And it's where the dog can then snuffle through to get the food. And it's a really great enrichment activity because you're engaging the dog's seeker system, that seeking system that is so vital to help that dog. Especially for anxious dogs or fearful dogs that are nervous. But it's just a really great enriching activity. And while Sarah was talking, I was thinking of Barnsley. Holly sent me a video of Barnsley, who
That's my dog.
Yes, not her husband, her dog. And he's a rather special chap.
We call him artistic because he's just out there.
He's totally out there. But he does have very some odd behaviors, linked definitely to physicality, I think to certain cognitive decline as he is old. But Holly, tell Sarah what he's been doing lately.
It's interesting because he's always had quirks, right? And I believe he's OCD. Like, for instance, there's certain ways when he has a pattern. So he'll come down the stairs. If there's something in the way from the way he's used to going, he freaks out. He can't figure out, I go this way, I get to the same place. It's upsetting to him. And I watch him. So we have a TV room downstairs where basically he eats and he hangs out when we're down there. And he has to walk past the TV room, which has got big double French doors. So it's not like a narrow door he has to navigate. Walks past it, has to circle the carpet, come in from that way. He won't just make a right into the TV room. So I see these patterns. So lately, he has started this. I'm in a guest room working upstairs. I set up a little area here, and I have a hallway, and I can see my bedroom from there. The dog Barnsley will come in. He looks at me through the doorway. He'll walk past the door and he has to back into the room. He won't walk into the room front ways. And he does it consistently. And I have many videos of him backing into the room. It's the oddest thing. And that's new. It just started maybe 2 months ago, maybe 6 weeks ago, out of nowhere. And nothing has changed. Nothing is different. I've been in here since March. And it's just the oddest. And Victoria's seen the video, and I was like, what is happening here? I mean, I want to kind of do that truck beeping, backing up sound, because I have that, he just backs in, and then once he gets in, he turns around and comes to me forward.
Do you have a different flooring in the bedroom?
Carpet in the bedroom, hardwoods in the hall, but I put mats everywhere because he's older and he slips a bit. Nice. So that's the other thing is if the mat's not in the exact right place, he won't walk on it.
I'd be really interested to see videos of him and also photographs of his coat, Holly, because from what you were saying, I would have to rule out pain, and pain that could be chronic pain that could have been there for some time. And it's so hard for us to identify potential pain in our animals because we're with them every day, and we also might not see that small shift in how that dog organizes his body. But when you start looking back over old photographs, you might actually start to recognize that the coat's starting to change appearance. So this is another huge part of ACE, is going into detail about the observations, not just the ear set and the tail set and how that dog might organize his right hind leg, for example, but looking at the tongue, the habitual position of the tongue. If you've got any pictures of him panting in the summer, and they're head on, look at his tongue to see, is it in the middle of his mouth, or is one side of his, or is the canine tooth on one side covered more by the tongue than the canine tooth on the other side? And the canine tooth, obviously, is the little pointy up teeth on the bottom and the top of the jaw. Because that will give you information about his habitual posture and how he's organized his posture for many years. But also look at his coat, because if dogs have pulled themselves along from the forequarters for a long time, they start to develop what I call an Elizabethan ruff around the neck. So the coat starts to thicken, it might stand out more, and sometimes it will change color as well. And that's because the muscles in the front end of the dog are overdeveloped from the dog pulling himself along instead of pushing through from behind. And you might also see, got a fake dog here, a change in the direction of the coat over a really important part of the dog's spine. And that's where the 13 vertebrae in the upper part of the back join the 7 vertebrae in the lower part of the back. And that junction there is referred to as T13, so thoracic 13, L1, lumbar 1. Dogs overwork this area if there's immobility behind. So when someone says, my dog loves people so much, it wags its whole body from the middle of the spine, my head goes to, have we got a mobility problem through the hips or the knees or the lower back? Because the dog is wagging through the body because the dog can't wag just from the tail. because it can't load maybe painful hips or knees. So it has to move the whole body and swing the whole body left and right. So go back and look, because it might be that your dog, some OCD or behaviours that seem OCD are linked to pain. My wise, wonderful friend, who's also part of Vicar's teaching team, Sarah Heath, alerted me to that many, many years ago. Not all compulsive behaviours are linked to pain, but you have to rule pain out. And also it might be that he can't turn right. So that's why he's going what seems to be a longer route.
But it's more painful for him to turn right.
Yeah.
What you're saying, so the right turn could be because, he's an old dog, so it could be linked to that pain in his hips or in his,
and that's genius, because he is on Rimadyl, and I know a lot of people have older dogs that are on medications, and it may be that, because we know he does, sometimes he drags his paw, he'll step on his paw this way because he can't quite get it. And the vet did a test and said it's really affecting his right side, not as much as left.
There we are.
So that makes so much sense. Then see, genius, because I just thought it was his OCD quirky that he does all that. And maybe backing in is because he can't go right.
Exactly.
So instead he just kind of swings and just backs it in rather than going all the way around and coming back. Now he's just smarter than me, and he's saving steps and energy. See? Genius.
You know what? The only dog experts that exist are the dogs themselves. That's my humble opinion.
Yeah.
And they work things out, and they are unbelievable at problem solving. And I always think of the body and the nervous system like water. It will follow the path of least resistance. So if I watch a strong behavior movement pattern, I just always ask why. And we don't see it. So sometimes videoing and then sitting back and watching that video gives us the chance to truly observe our dog, because we're not with them teaching a new skill, so not right up close, and we might miss how they organise their body, and we're not distracted with other stuff going on in our life. We just take some small clips of video or look back over video you might have already taken, and just sit back and focus on what you see rather than what you think might be occurring. We can really start to understand our dogs on another level. And one of our students on our online program, because they're videoing content and uploading it to our dedicated Facebook groups, they were able to spot postural patterns that have been there for years that they had kind of acknowledged but hadn't understood the relevance of. So one dog was avoiding grass, and then, because I get people to look at how their dog organises their body in all aspects of their life, including toileting. Videoing her dog toileting, she realised the dog always left the right leg just out, and that the dog, when defecating, had to keep moving. And she was able to piece that together with the dog's clear avoidance of grass. Because when we ask a dog to walk over a softer substrate, such as sand on the beach or grass, if it's, good cushioned grass, there is more movement in the joints and more stretch in the connective tissue. And that can be uncomfortable for dogs that have been working and living or moving in a really tight frame for a long time. So that small detail alone highlighted the need for vet exam for this dog, and obviously then taking steps to modify interactions, get the right pain relief in, and then get referral maybe to a physical therapist as well. So again, like everything's connected. Nothing is just happening in isolation, including movement. And when we start to really sit back and be objective, these small, subtle details really start to jump out. And going back to that snuffle mat discussion, so many people come to me saying, I can't give my dog enrichment. My dog doesn't like snuffle mats, doesn't show any interest in searching for treats in any treat-seeking mat or, floor covering. And I'll say, but do you think it's because your dog can't maintain stillness with the head down? Is that dog now overloading maybe sore elbows or stretching uncomfortable hip joints, or maybe the patella luxates, and stretching is difficult because it affects how the dog feels in the knees? And when we raise the snuffle mats or the little foraging pouches that we also use. Do you know what? The dog loves that activity. So it was just presented in a way that wasn't accessible for the dog. Maybe the dog was really fearful, didn't emotionally feel safe enough to put their head down. And that's how free work's really developed, as being able to shape the height of enrichment activities to help the dog find good physical balance, to help the dog engage that sensitive right hind quarter in your lovely dog's case, perhaps, Holly. So the body's amazing. It will reset, provided we remove the reasons or support the reasons why some of those blockages are there in the first place. And it just, I don't know, just never ceases to amaze me how incredible dogs are, what detail is in their body, so we never even need to know their backstory if we're working in a shelter, and how forgiving and giving these incredible animals are.
You know, as I have 2 senior dogs, and then of course I had my beloved Sadie, who passed away 3 years ago, and she after I had attended your seminars and conferences where you spoke at, you enabled me to see dogs in a completely different way as well, to adhere to that, or to be really cognizant of the way they moved, of the way their hair lay on their body. And I noticed with Sadie, I could tell when she was uncomfortable. She got the ruff on her neck, and I knew that her hips were hurting her. And I was able to see that there were changes in her coat, especially at the top of her tail, just where the tail, as it were, meets the back, and at the base of that tail, and I could see it started sticking up, and the hair there, she started to get dandruff there, and I knew, and I felt so blessed to have heard Sarah speak, because I knew that was indicating that that this area was causing her discomfort. And so I think when Sarah comes and speaks to our students at my academy, I mean, after a day with her, their heads are exploding. They don't ever look at dogs in the same way again. And when you do, and I encourage everybody, if you can, go check ACE out, because it opens up a whole new world. Look, I always say, observe your dog's behavior, observe your dog, but really observe your dog. ACE teaches you to really observe your dog, really understand what's going on inside your dog. They can't tell us in the language that we understand. We have to try and decode what they're saying, what they're communicating. And because they're so good at guarding pain, it's even harder for us to miss these things. So, I mean, it does make sense with Barnsley, who is an old dog. He's a big old hound, and he is on pain medication, but maybe he's not as...
We might need to up that medication.
Yes, you might.
What I'm thinking is, because, it's that fine balance between, I want him to still exercise. It's use it or lose it, right? You don't want an old dog just to sit because they deteriorate, but you don't want him to overuse. He loves his walk. So now that I'm home, we do our 2-a-days. We do in the morning, we do in the afternoon, and he loves it. But I'm wondering at what point it's more painful. You know what I mean? Like he wants to go for his walk, but I'm concerned that it's hurting him more later when we get back if we're overusing it. But I don't want to take his walks away, because I don't want him just to be sedentary. So all of that makes sense, to actually physically look at him, not just his behavior, but look at his body as well. And I honestly, when we're done with this podcast, I'm calling my vet and asking if we should up the medication of his Rimadyl, just because he's only on 50 milligrams. Maybe he needs 75.
Yep.
Holly, ACE free work would be perfect for him. So I'll send you some information on it. I'll sign you both up to one of the online courses so that you can access some information and some of the videos. We had an older dog on one of the 2 in-person events we could run last year, and he's 9, and he was diagnosed with I can't remember what the condition was, but a problem with the spine when he was really quite young. And he came on the workshop and he was dropped in the back, and he had ripples through his coat, which ripples in some dogs' coats are normal. but they become more exaggerated when the skin becomes tight, which creates the dandruff you were talking about with darling Sadie, Vicky, and the swells and curls become more exaggerated again because of immobility and over bulking in some areas of the dog's body because it's compensating for other areas that are weak. This dog, honestly, I could get really emotional when I think about this dog. By day 1, after 1 session of free work, his back was straight. By day 2, the ripples over his hindquarters were starting to flatten and soften. He lives with an amazing guardian who also takes him for physiotherapy and for acupuncture. But this dog was struggling with the on-lead physiotherapy exercises he was meant to do to improve his proprioception and improve his balance. Because as you say, Holly, it is use it or lose it. So we put his physio exercises into free work. And he was going over the poles that were part of the rehab. And he was meant to do 4 repetitions. But after 2, you could see it was just a bit much. And then on the 3rd repetition, he knocked the poles with his hindquarters. And I said, let's stop. Because for me, it's about showing the body what it can do and not reminding the body of its limitation. So let's do 2 repetitions. We know for this dog, licky mat on a block this height is incredibly reinforcing for him, and it helps him stand straight. And when a dog's licking, they use nearly every single muscle in their body. So that's another way, Holly, to give him the opportunity to exercise, but without putting any strain on his joints. So we did 2 repetitions, set up the licking mat at the end of the poles. He had like a few seconds of licking. He was invited back completely free. We do this all off lead. And the quality of movement over the second 2 repetitions was incredible. We would have been jumping up and down screaming if we hadn't thought it would have caused problems to this darling dog. He was amazing. He's still going through free work so 2 or 3 times a week with his guardian. He looks 5 years younger. And the physio and acupuncturist cannot believe the change because the free work is maintaining all the amazing work the other therapists are doing for him. It is life-changing and life-enhancing. And from a behaviour point of view, it's saving dogs' lives in shelters. Yep. And I'm so lucky that I've had the canine educators I've had because it's those dogs that pieced all this together. And Henry, one of the dogs that now lives with me, came on foster because his darling guardians were just so overwhelmed with his grabbing and mouthing behaviour. And obviously Henry was overwhelmed as well. But it's Henry that really kind of helped me structure it in a really sort of more structured approach. It sort of helped me form that more structured approach. And it's just such a rewarding activity. Your dog will be able to use his nose and every single muscle in his body because you're right about being concerned about too much walking because that is going to reinforce pain, and it could be reinforcing this compensation pattern where the part of the body you actually want him to use is actually getting weaker and weaker. So I'm having the best time at the moment working with police dog handlers. We've got a really forward-thinking unit in Avon and Somerset. And that's what we're looking at, helping these dogs build good balance, build strength, lengthen structures. Because when a dog can lengthen through the back, he can strengthen through the back instead of dropping away or shifting the weight to one side. So I'll help you, Holly. And, send me video. I'll do anything to help you.
Thank you.
One question, Sarah. There are a lot of hills where Holly lives. There's steep hills. So going down a hill to the road and then taking a right turn and then walking up the hill, that's obviously going to put a little bit more pressure, isn't it?
Yes. So what I would be looking at, Holly, is thinking about how you can help him balance, be pain-free. Obviously, that's the main thing. Then help him move in better balance and so he can develop even muscles. And then the hills could be helpful, but they might be too hard for him. And when a dog is task focused or engaged in an activity he really enjoys, such as walking, they won't show lameness unless the lameness is becoming really quite pronounced. They won't listen to the pain in their body. So we also want to take into consideration not what we just see in the moments we're interacting with the dog, but what's the behaviour like afterwards. Do you see more compulsive behaviour in the evening? And if so, is it really part of cognitive decline, or is it because the dog's more uncomfortable in the evening because of the activity he was engaged in during the day? And it's the same with things like resource guarding. We have to rule out pain, because any compulsive or repetitive behaviour can have pain underlying. And pain doesn't just mean soft tissue or joint pain, it can be gut pain. And this is something that I've been really aware of with adolescent dogs, Vicky, which is why I'm so passionate about that age group for lots of different reasons. Because I think some young dogs have acid reflux, which changes the behaviour after they've eaten or after they've eaten a certain treat.
My dog.
Including picking up stones, carrying things in their mouth, because carrying something in the mouth increases saliva production, which can then help reduce acid reflux. But it can also obviously increase noise sensitivity and touch sensitivity. Acid reflux also increases grabbing and mouthing behaviour. And there are so many things happening naturally in the developing dog that are encouraging that dog to engage in behaviours that will help him thrive and survive. But they are also behaviours that can make some people believe that dog is trying to take over, and they're not. And one big thing that happens in adolescence is the dog needs to climb. The dog needs to climb. So your heels would have been perfect for your dog when he was younger. But when that's happening in the home environment, unfortunately, some people will be told your dog's trying to take over, your dog's elevating status by climbing on the table and the furniture. No, the dog has an innate need to climb during adolescence to help the vestibular system develop. That's why we have playgrounds for children. That's why kids love to climb, because it's part of their natural development.
And so, important. That's why we have platforms.
Pain in adolescence is really common. And obviously gut pain too, but gut pain obviously can affect older dogs as well as dental pain, ear pain. And, I'm just,
I'm telling you, we geek out on this, but this is life changing. This is mind blowing. This is life changing. When you start down this avenue and, you do see your dogs in a completely different way. You start to look at dogs in a completely different way. Now, you're not going to catch everything, right? It takes a long time to become really fluent with this. But I'm still learning. I'm still learning with Ace, and I'm certainly going to learn more. But yes, I as trainers, we're always still learning, because the dogs are still teaching us. They are the best teachers, as Sarah says. And so we're not going to know everything, but at least we can start that journey and start down that road of really understanding what our dogs are experiencing. And my Chihuahua, she has acid reflux. I know that when she starts licking a lot, it's not because she's stressed. It's not because she's hungry. It's because she is having acid reflux. And then when she starts pain guarding her tummy and her body starts to arch and curve, I know that she has a stomach ache. So it's all of these things that you begin to recognize, these little subtle signs in your dog that you might otherwise miss. And I think, at the beginning, Sarah, we talked about virtual and the fact that the pandemic has taken us away from going into people's homes or having people come to our centers so that we can work with their dogs. But actually, virtual has taken, I believe, a lot of pressure off a lot of dogs and people, because they're in their own home environments. There's nobody invading their home except this person through a computer.
Totally agree. I'm seeing that. On one of their online courses, we've had this amazing all our students are just amazing. So I run courses called Ace Dog Detective, as well as some different dedicated modules like Ace Adolescence and stuff. So Ace Dog Detective is all about getting on that dog detective trail. And this brilliant guardian joined up for one of the modules with a foster dog with a bite history and quite complex behaviour skills. And she put in her email, he will be able to do the beginning, but because of all the other elements you bring in, so we build what I call a contact contract as well, building body contact at pace to suit the dog, and we do some other exercises where hands move holding the bucket. So I do like a movement version of Chirag Patel's The Bucket Game. And she said he won't be able to do any of that, but we'll start off. He did the whole course. Because he was able to stay in his safe environment. And the progression with each video clip, we could say, right, change your hand, watch that. He held his breath. He stopped blinking. Blinking's linked to dopamine. Go back to the point where he started to half move that eyelid. That's what we want to reinforce. We could break it down in a way that would never have been possible in an in-person event. He not only did the whole course, he can now be touched everywhere, and he's about to be ready to be rehomed from a dog that 3 weeks prior had so many struggles that the amazing foster caregiver didn't think he'd be able to do really very much at all, but maybe just some of the early work where we just observed the dog moving at liberty. It's been life-changing because also the dog hasn't travelled in a car. The dog isn't in an unfamiliar environment where part of their nervous system is occupied by the new sights and sounds and smells of that environment. The guardian's more relaxed. The guardian also has the permanent choice to opt out by going, oh, my internet just crashed. So I think actually that takes pressure off the guardian.
Of course.
And also they're not sleeping away like they would be if they were coming to me for a course where the dog might be disturbed in an unfamiliar environment, or the person might be sleep deprived because they're in an unknown environment too. I just think the benefits have just been unbelievable. And I thought the progression might be a bit more challenging, but it's been faster because people have learned from watching their own videos back. In an in-person, we don't video the sessions all the time.
No, we don't. I mean, thank goodness we've got video that we can. I mean, Holly, yeah. I know that when we started this podcast, did you think that your mind would be blown?
I know. I was just sitting here and I'm like when you kept saying it, I was like, oh, wow. Oh, yeah. Oh, wow. Oh, I mean, and it's true because we don't because I'm not immersed in the world like you guys are. I'm the typical dog owner that will do anything for my animals, go to any length that I can, but my knowledge is so limited. So now I know there's more that I can do, because sometimes you feel like, well, he's 14 and a half and he's been through chemo and he's just old but now I know, no, he's not. He goes for walks every day. I just have to be more observant. So it's great. Knowledge is power, right? And I feel like I can not only empower myself, but him to be, a healthier dog, because he's going to live forever.
Yeah.
So we've come to the end of this podcast, but I do want to say that we did have a canine here, and their handler in one of the departments here in Georgia, that the dog was starting to show snappy behavior. And so one of the things I said is that take a video of your dog, and I'm going to send it to Sarah Fisher, because I don't think that this is as it's all behavior, isn't it? But I think there's a pain link there. So I sent the x-rays that they had taken to Sarah, and she sort of looked and was like, oh, maybe this. And anyway, the dog, after Sarah's feedback, and after they're making some changes, didn't snap again.
Yes.
And that's and we've got these canines up here that are doing a very tough job. And so that meant that a canine was able to continue working with their handler, was able to continue living in the home with the handler, and as a much, much happier dog. So Sarah, for so many reasons, I want to say thank you. I'm very excited for your presentation at the Dog Behavior Conference, April the 16th to the 18th. Be there. Register at positively.com/DBC. Yes, Holly.
I just had to tell you my bath story.
Oh my gosh, you've got to. Let's end with that.
When I was in college, I lived in London for a year. And so my roommate and I at the time would go to, explore for the weekend. And we went to Bath. And there's these, it's probably one of the most beautiful places at all in England. And they have the canals. And we took a little canal ride. And there was this lovely older couple sitting in front of us. And they were just so sweet. And, they were so cute together. And so we're, kind of struck up a little bit of a conversation with them. And then as we're going along the canals, there was the biggest white, I didn't know what it was. A duck, right? Like huge, white, beautiful. And there were so many of them. I'd never seen it. I said, oh my God, look at the size of that duck. That doesn't even look like a duck. And the older gentleman turned around and he said, oh, darling, that's an English breakfast chicken. And I said, a what? And he goes, it's an English breakfast chicken. And I said, oh, and he goes, it's very rare around the world, but here we have a ton of them. He's going on and on about it. And then so the whole ride, I'm like, oh, look at that English breakfast chicken. Look at how big he is. Look at that. There's a baby English breakfast chicken. The entire boat ride. So everybody hears it. So then we said goodbye to the couple, and they were so nice. We're getting off the boat, and his wife turns around, and she goes, it was a duck.
I love that. That's brilliant. I like English breakfast chicken.
I do. I'm going to call them from now on.
Yeah.
That's my memory of Bath. Yes, it was great. Absolutely wonderful.
I love it. I'm so glad that you could come on the podcast, Sarah. Thank you so much for the work you do. If people want to find out more about ACE, where do they go?
Oh, ACE Connections is our Facebook group. It's a really lovely, friendly, supportive group. Or tiddyfarm.org.uk. And can I just thank you as well, Vicky, for everything you do to share information for making the world, that will make the world a better place for dogs, because you are so generous and you do an amazing job. And I know it's not always easy. So thank you for everything you do.
Well, you're welcome. I very much.
I second that and third that. I'm in the presence of greatness. Thank you both.
I very much appreciate it. Well, thank you so much. Thanks, guys, for listening. That's the end of our podcast. I hope you agree that I hope your mind is as blown as all of ours has been today. So take care of yourselves, please, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning in to Victoria Stilwell's Positively Podcast. For more information, visit positively.com. Get connected on Facebook and YouTube as Victoria Stilwell, or follow her on Twitter @VictoriaS. Be sure to tune in next time as Victoria helps to change dogs' lives positively.